The first part of the dream would have me witnessing a scene. I would consider it a future view. The details aren't important, just that it had the same sense about it as another series of very persistent and consistent future view scenes that indeed came to pass. Not warning dreams as such, just glimpses at potential happenings that may occur at some point. It is a reminder of how we do receive information on the real side, and if we overlook them, not take heed of them, especially if they are heads-up dreams, we may find ourselves walking into the experience. The series of persistent dreams I had over several months being an example, and I'd be curious to see what becomes of these new potential view real side experiences. These, of course, can't be construed as prophetic. They simply are the experience that will be, based on the causes being set in motion now, the attitudes, thoughts, emotions, and agreements, etc. And so these future views can only be there as the effect, the experience that will follow the cause, that which we are projecting now, and so can be averted. If the cause changes, so can the experience, especially if one is connected to one's real awareness and stands in the new nowness, and so inadvertently generated karma doesn't need be concerned about or experienced, or in the very least, we can move from unconscious generators of our experience to conscious, and then ultimately further steps to move beyond the personal self and cause and effect altogether. Anyway, I would awake from my potential future experience and feel this buzzing energy about myself. This is an automatic thing and stems from my out-of-body and projection practice days, largely disregarded now in favour of more expansive and awareness-inducing real-side adventures. Nevertheless, sometimes I have this buzzing sensation, which I know to be the prelude to an out-of-body experience. So I focused upon this, and away I go. I feel myself shooting off someplace. Interestingly enough, I pass through a whole collection of doors of various colours and appearances. Never really seen doors before, and they seem to be in my path as I proceeded, simply opening as I continued. I found myself then in a room, and it was empty, except for one other individual, my sister Linsey. She seemed somewhat oblivious and upset. I assumed myself to be on the astral. After a little time, I managed to grasp her attention and attempted to explain that I was on one of my out-of-body escapades, and the specifics of how this could be so. She seemed somewhat disinterested, and maybe just talking was a little dull, so we exited the building and found ourselves in an open nature area beyond, a little overgrown. I wouldn't say startling in its beauty, a bit rugged, but it wasn't the lower astral, at least. There were animals nearby, and I was unable to exactly recollect their appearances, but the size of cows, predatory animals, but seemed not to present a threat. Indeed, several of them came over, much to Linsey's horror, but seemed they were curious, and I petted them. We moved on further, and into a rocky canyon. This part reminded me of how once, on encountering Gwen, my mother, on the real side, I would go on to impress upon her the malleable nature of these places beyond the rigid physical life level, and she would willingly accompany me on an adventure. On this occasion, I would draw Linsey's attention to a huge mountain, and promptly I made it erupt, like a volcano, spewing lava down its sides and into the canyon below. The canyon would begin to fill with lava at an alarming rate, and now we were joined by another group, all of a sudden, of equally as alarmed peoples, and along with Linsey being alarmed, we had quite the situation of alarmedness. I wasn't very perturbed. In fact, I would produce huge sheets of cardboard and lay them across the surface of the lava-filled canyons. This seemed to keep the lava at bay, at least temporarily. As odd a situation and solution as this may sound, I wandered along the side of the canyon, beyond the alarmed group, and there was another smaller group of individuals, seemingly using some telecommunications device, and in communication with someone. I had a sense these individuals were of a more aware variety. You can detect the subtle differences of awareness between real-side individuals, or wherever you happen to find them, and you can definitely impression the awareness of, say, a real guide. Another determination of an individual's awareness is how they tend to conduct themselves. The more they are connected with their awareness and operating from their real selves more so than the personal selves, the more calm, in control, and adept they are in any given situation. and this group were very much this way, on their little phone device, to whomever they were speaking to. I asked if I could use the phone, and proclaimed it an emergency, that I needed to get a rescue team out here to save the alarmed group I seem to have adopted, and Linsey. The main one of the group would tell me how it was I that was orchestrating events here, and that there is no need for rescue, as I can just as readily rectify the alarming situation. I would grin and tell him I was just role-playing, and requested they go along with it. He didn't seem too impressed, so I let him and his group be. I manifested a little control panel in the rock face as an alternative, and dialed in a special code. As my panic-stricken group watched on, I assured them help would come in the form of alien spacecrafts, and they would pick us up. And even as I punched in the keys for my message of requested rescue, it made that tune from Close Encounters. Da 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 da. That one. Anyway, that done, I led my group to a location around the area where Linsey and I had first emerged from the initial building. I suggested everyone watch the skies, and just as I had made the volcano erupt in the first place, I tried to have the skies filled with UFOs. All I could manage was the slight impression of them, the vague sense of the craft. I was somewhat disappointed, and my group were getting restless. But there the experience would end. With practice, out-of-body projections can become longer in duration, but at first, or if you don't practice them with any regularity, as I generally don't these days, you can only stay from the physical body for short periods, and then back into the physical body I went. So I was probably on the astral, and encountered some others who were also. I'd say I specifically found Linsey to try and impress upon her how there is more than just the physical, literal, one-dimensional, self-convinced life that she restricts herself to. And with awareness of the life levels beyond the physical, and knowledge of their malleable nature, how things are more so created instantly with imagination, an opportunity to do just this, and so the experience would unfold as it would. As I considered it an invaluable opportunity to get Linsey's attention. Perchance something might filter through to her personal self on the physical, and spark a little more interest in things of a more real nature. we would encounter these animal creatures too, and they seemed curious. I was reminded of how, with people connected to the true light of the ears, they tend to be a curiosity for creatures and other individuals. Often, their real selves will prompt them to approach their real selves, recognizing the light of the ears, and their personal selves then become inquisitive. So we always are sharing and presenting on the real side, or wherever we happen to be, with our connections with the ears, as it will be like a flame to a moth, and just being then a demonstration, like the sun, can be enough to glean attention of the unaware and share with them. We may experience this on the physical too, how individuals may be moved to friend us and be uncertain as to why, perhaps intuitive nudges or prompts from their real selves. Anyway, my volcano certainly got Linsey's attention, and then I inherited another group of relatively unaware peoples. Sometimes we can get ourselves into situations as we go about our activities and do what we do. I was going to stop at the volcano, but the idea to have a spacecraft come and rescue my group seemed a good way to wrap it up and make for a potential awareness-sparking grand finale for Linsey. I had a sense that the individuals who had possession of the phone device were, yes, more aware peoples, and were beyond the ability of my panicky group to perceive, indicating why these aware people were so calm under the circumstances, that they were on a life-level position, removed from this astral scene, and I had the recognition to see them, and the life level they were on, but my panicked group could not. But I would continue with proceedings, as I manifested my little keypad device. This aware group not wanting to play along, and perhaps if they were on a life level beyond my group's ability to recognize, it would have been a wasted element anyway. I may have disappeared before the panicking eyes of my alarmed group, as I interacted with stuff on a life level beyond which they could recognize. I wouldn't want to add more panic to them. So everything was very readily manipulated up until the final part. On the real side then, on the astral, or wherever, manipulating the scenery is one thing. The cause, the want to do so, resulting in the effect. The experience sought instantaneously. As the cause and effect mechanic is this way beyond the physical. The principle is the same on the more dense physical. I might want to create something. It's just the effect, the experience, takes longer to come into being on the physical, even though it will be instantly there on the real side. So I had my volcano and funny little keypad immediately. Seems though what followed is a reminder of free will. How, yes, we might well manipulate situations on the real side if it is for a beneficial reason, for others' awareness. Then we won't have to worry about the effect taplines that must follow, as we have done what we have with intent, the real intent and awareness that prompted our actions, and not just for our personal selves. But when it comes to involving spacecraft, and in theory their occupants, then we are dealing with free will. We might invite them, or request of them, or some might even demand. But to have another being do anything is according to their free will, their agreement. In this case, the aliens and the spacecraft did not come, and I did simply invite them to do so through my little keypad, that they might be a part of a mini wake-up for my temporarily adopted group. It was their free will to decline, and I didn't get their agreement. In other words, the group I had must also agree to the experience I was bringing about for their benefit, and in essence they did. The means to escape the volcanic situation via a rescue from the aliens. If we took the volcano to be a microcosm of the overall planet, as it continues its demise spiral, we can see how situations of disaster can be quite the incentive to get people outside their personal selves. How iron epochs, then, are more likely to have people wanting to become more aware and escape an imploding simulator, and have them more likely to agree to things they may not otherwise have agreed to, like the presence of an alien rescue. In a way, we can see how agreement is certainly sought through fear, and this is the principal tool of the controllers to get many of their agreements. But certainly tumultuous end-time cataclysms will have the unaware maybe shaken out of their slumber, maybe at a moment that is too late, but regardless. However, maybe erecting a volcano or two in this way on the real side is an option, for often those we encounter on the real side seem oblivious to our presence, or simply are disinterested. So it's a quick, effective way of getting their attention